Hi, I'm the Golem, and this is a review of a watch reviewer whose channel is named J-City Reviews. I'm nicknaming this reviewer Harvard because the logo on his main YouTube page has what appears to be Harvard University all over it. Harvard is pictured in front of what appears to be one of the buildings in the Harvard University campus, and the background color of his logo uses the Harvard crimson. I could be wrong, but to me the logo is a not so subtle coded message that the J-City Review guy went to Harvard. I'm a little creeped out by Harvard's basement setting. When I see Harvard's scruffy beard and the dark staircase behind him, I can't stop thinking about where in this basement he's storing the bodies in his deep freezer. Harvard doesn't use an audio editor. This causes an issue, since the beginning and ending shots of Harvard talking to the viewer are done with either a better mic or with a mic that is closer. When the scene switches to a close-up of the watch being reviewed, which is recorded at a much lower volume, you need to raise the volume to hear it. Since Harvard switches back to talking to the camera at the end, which is recorded at a much higher volume, you get an audio blowout, as you've had to raise the volume earlier to hear Harvard when he did the watch close-up. Harvard reviews watches in the sub $500 price range. I really like Harvard's eclectic choice of watches to review. He reviews mechanical watches, battery-powered quartz watches, as well as solar-powered quartz watches. He also has reviewed popular digital watches such as Casio Classics and G-Shocks, and popular analog digital hybrids such as the Casio Pro Trek. He's reviewed all types of watches, from divers to dress watches. Harvard has shied away from Chinese knockoffs, which I don't view as a bad thing. Harvard has done some good watch comparisons as well, such as his Citizen Promaster Tough versus Victorinox INOX. Harvard has also done some informative and mildly entertaining videos, which I'll call off the beaten path episodes, such as the one where he evaluates Target watch brand watches, and another video where he removes the shroud from a Seiko tuna. The off the beaten path videos where he has scratched his watches have been shocking to me and horrifying to watch. In one scratch video where Harvard compares the hardness of the stainless steel Citizen Promaster GMT to the Citizen coated titanium Promaster Tough, it made me squirm. To test hardness, Harvard uses a scratch testing kit, which is comprised of a set of chisels of varying hardness. Harvard scratches both the GMT and the Tough with these chisels in order to determine which watch is more scratch resistant. This is not a very scientific test. First of all, there is no way to know that you have applied equal amounts of pressure when scratching both watches. Also, these chisels may have created scratches that are not visible to the naked eye. I know nothing about materials testing, but it's hard for me to imagine that in an age where we have the technology to reconstruct entire genomes from scattered, degraded DNA from extinct animals, that one must resort to carving scratches into $800 worth of watches in order to get an idea of which is more scratch resistant. Can Harvard simply ask one of his professors at Harvard University if he could use one of the Harvard University hardness testers instead of brutalizing poor innocent watches that have never done any harm to anyone? When Harvard isn't trying to get a commission from his Amazon affiliate partnership, I appreciate that he's upfront about how much he pays for his watches and where he gets them. Many reviewers want to keep this valuable information a secret, and this really bothers me. There is a disconcerting pattern of Harvard's disrespect and lack of reverence for watches that is both appalling and traumatizing for watch lovers like me to watch. In this unboxing video, Harvard unboxes a watch with disgustingly gross and filthy hands. Harvard apologizes for this, but this does not absolve him of this sin. You can't do unboxing videos with dirty hands. You shouldn't even be handling watches with gross, dirty hands. It's just wrong. Watching this completely freaks me out, almost as badly as watching Harvard scratch his watches. To add insult to injury, in this video, Harvard picks up a caliper to do specs. While the caliper still has plastic on one of its vices, it looks like a metal caliper. Every cell in my body at this point is screaming at the top of its lungs, "You can't use a metal caliper with watches." The caliper might be plastic, I really can't tell for sure, but the thought that it might be metal freaks me out. Later, Harvard has some difficulty obtaining the bandwidth with the caliper. He's not sure if it's 23 millimeters or 24 millimeters. His caliper says 23.85 millimeters. When I read a caliper that says 28.85, I'm doing something which is called rounding decimals, and I'm saying 24 millimeters. When Harvard does his specs, he doesn't round to the nearest half millimeter either. I think it's a little amateurish to give viewers tenth of a meter precision measurements, as the caliper and the way the object is measured is likely to introduce a slight amount of error to begin with. In Harvard's Citizen GMT review, a watch which I also reviewed, Harvard calls the watch's second hand a seconds hand, plural. Calling the second hand a seconds hand is a mistaken English usage that no native English-speaking watch reviewer should be making, as it leaves the impression that the watch reviewer is a rank amateur. While I didn't agree with Harvard's assessment of the Citizen GMT, I thought Harvard's analysis of it was pretty good. He did, however, leave out two details which I thought were very important. Harvard did mention that the watch had a GMT hand, but he didn't explain how to set it, which is, to me, pretty vital considering that this watch's main billing was its GMT feature. Also, Harvard left out the fact that the bracelet has a half link, which gives the consumer improved sizability and wearability. Harvard also does something that I call fluff videos. Fluff videos are any videos which are on topics that are either done to death or give you no valuable information. Almost all YouTube videos that start with the number 5, such as Harvard's 5 reasons you should own a solar watch, are fluff videos. Harvard's which solar watch brand is the best video really annoyed me. First of all, it was clickbait. He never told me which was the best. This video went on interminably for 20 minutes, with Harvard talking annoyingly slowly. In the beginning, Harvard argues that you can't compare solar watches because it's like comparing a Bugatti Chiron to a Toyota Camry. Maybe all Harvard guys know what a Bugatti is, but I'm just a pizza delivery guy in Vermont. I've never seen nor heard of a Bugatti. Harvard employs this arcane example to make the argument that comparing solar watches in different price ranges is like comparing apples and oranges. I find this argument to be ridiculous, especially in light of the fact that he says that there are few high-end solar watches. Some boxing analysts and boxing historians will say that Sugar Ray Robinson, a middleweight, was pound for pound the greatest fighter who ever lived. This doesn't mean that Robinson could have beaten the best heavyweights. What this means is that relative to Robinson's middleweight class, he was better than the other fighters in the other classes relative to their respective class. This is a perfectly valid argument, and likewise, there is no good reason why one couldn't, after doing the proper research and investment in buying all solar watches, rank them based on a set of criteria. After Harvard tells me that you can't really compare solar watches, which contradicts the title of the video, Harvard then wastes another 6 minutes of my life giving histories of each of the big 3 watch brands that make solar watches: Citizen, Seiko, and Casio. And he gives details about these big 3 watch brands that have nothing to do with solar watches, such as bringing up the 19th century founder of Seiko. Harvard then goes on to give histories of the other watch brands, whose names become increasingly obscure. The brands that he mentions become so unknown that Harvard can't even BS his way through the description, so he literally plagiarizes the text right off the websites of these watch companies. I don't think I've ever even seen the biggest airball watch review on YouTube, the Time Teller, regurgitate language directly from a website when he does his fake watch reviews. At the end of the video, Harvard recommends the big 3 Japanese watch brands for solar watches because they, quote, have a proven history of making quality timepieces, unquote. First of all, Harvard doesn't say which of the big 3 make the best solar watches. Second of all, beyond the few solar watches that Harvard has reviewed on his channel, he doesn't seem very familiar with solar watches. If he had every intention of axing the non-big 3 watches from contention since the beginning of his video, why did he even include them and waste another 10 minutes of my life BSing about them? What really irritated me was that there was no mention of specs nor movements. How on earth could you even begin to compare different solar watches without mentioning the capabilities of their movements? Harvard's approach to this video is basically, since I know virtually nothing about solar watches and have not done the proper research, I'm going to bombard the user with useless information because I rely on people to be too stupid to notice that I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. This video made it clear to me that Harvard lacks the ability to think analytically, which is a necessary skill for doing proper watch reviews. I can't endorse J-City reviews. Harvard's lack of interest in professionalism, his lack of scholarship, his lack of attention to detail, and his lack of understanding of what is appropriate when handling watches lead me to believe that he is not qualified to do watch reviews. Please like, please subscribe.